Welcome back. In a previous video, we went over the Pythagorean Theorem, and we learned that we use the Pythagorean Theorem when we have a right triangle. So we have one corner that makes up a 90-degree angle. The two sides that make up that 90-degree angle are called the legs, and the side opposite the 90-degree angle or right angle is called the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always the longest side, and that's known as side C. This right here is the Pythagorean Theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Today we will talk about the converse of the Pythagorean Theorem. So, the Pythagorean Theorem states that if a triangle is a right triangle, then A squared plus B squared equals C squared. The converse of the Pythagorean Theorem states that if A squared plus B squared equals C squared, then the triangle is a right triangle. So if this is true, then it's a right triangle. Then the triangle is a right triangle. So there's a couple steps that we're going to use for figuring out if the side lengths make up a right triangle. First, we need to substitute those values into our formula. Again, that formula is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Important reminder, the hypotenuse, so our C is always the longest side. Very important we remember that. In math, I always tell you guys we need to make sure that we identify common errors and then make sure that we don't do them. And this is one of those common errors. Not recognizing that the longest side is always side C. We're going to substitute those values in. We're going to simplify. Then we'll add. And we will determine whether the side lengths make a right triangle. So if the statement is true, then it is a right triangle. If it is not true, then it is not a right triangle. So we're going to identify that using these steps. Our directions say tell whether each triangle with the given side lengths is a right triangle. So we're given 3 side lengths to a triangle, and we need to determine, do these side lengths make a right triangle? Our first step is to substitute the given values into the formula. So we're going to plug these values into this formula. We need to make sure that we identify side C first, and that is always the longest side. So I'm going to look at these side lengths, and I see that 41 inches is our longest side. So that is side C. Our other 2 sides are our legs, so we can label this A and this B, or we can label this B and this A. It doesn't matter, they're both legs. So I'm just gonna label this A and this B. All right, now that I have my side lengths labeled, I'm gonna substitute those values in to our formula. Again, our formula is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So we're gonna plug in 9 squared plus 40 squared equals 41 squared. And then we are going to simplify. So 9 squared, remember you can use your calculator here. 9 squared, that's just 9 times 9, which is 81. Plus 40 squared, which is 1600, equals 41 squared, which is 1,681. We are now on step 3 where we need to add these values together. 81 plus 1,600 is 1,681 equals 1,681. That is a true statement. These do equal each other. So that means it is a right triangle. So it's a right triangle. Okay, let's slide on over to our next example here. Again, we're given 3 side lengths. We need to label those side lengths first, and I always start with side C. I look for my longest side. This time my longest side is listed first, 12 meters. So this is C. So a common mistake that is made is a lot of people think our last side length is side C, going in order A, B, C, and that is not the case. So always identify what's the longest first, label that side C. Then for our two legs here, you could label this A and this B, or this B and this A. It does not matter, they're both legs. Now that I have my values, I'm going to substitute those into our formula. Remember, the formula is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So we have A squared, which is 10 squared, plus B squared, which is 8 squared, equals C squared, which is 12 squared. We're going to simplify. So 10 squared, 10 times 10, that's 100. Plus 8 squared, that's 8 times 8, or you can use your calculator. 8 times 8 is 64, equals 12 squared. 12 times 12 is 144. So those were easy to just do some mental math with. Now we're on step 3 where we need to add. So we're going to add 100 plus 64, which is 164, equals 144. Those do not equal each other. So this is not true, and that means this is not a right triangle. Not a right triangle. For our next example, I want you to try this example on your own. Pause the video and then check back with me to see if you're doing it right, following these steps. So again, given 3 side lengths, I'm going to identify the longest side. What is our hypotenuse? What is side C? Here I see 25 centimeters is the longest side, so that is C. I'm going to label my other 2 side lengths, A and B, and then I'm going to start substituting into our formula. It is a good idea to write this formula every time so you have it right there in front of you and you can easily substitute those values in. So we have 14 squared plus B is 23 squared, equals 25 squared. So again, you can use your calculator here if you don't know what 14 squared is. 14 squared. That's 196 plus 23 squared, 529, equals 25 squared, which is 625. Now we're on step 3. We need to add these values together, and we get 725 equals 625. Is that true? No, those do not equal each other. So this is not a right triangle. Not a right triangle. So if you got that, good job. All right, last example of the day. Again, we're given 3 side lengths. I am going to label my longest side first. That's always our hypotenuse, always side C. I'm gonna label my other 2 side lengths, A and B. Those are my legs that make up that 90-degree angle. I'm gonna substitute those values into the formula. So we have 27 squared, A squared, plus 36 squared equals 45 squared. 27 squared, you can use your calculator for that. That's 729 plus 36 squared, which is 1,296. Equals 45 squared. 45 squared is 2,025. So we just simplified. Now we need to add. We're adding these values together. When we add them together, we get 2,025 equals 2,025. That is a true statement. So that means that this is a right triangle. So today we learned about the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. We are given 3 side lengths. We plug those side lengths into the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And we identified that if it was true, then it was a right triangle. If it is not true, it is not a right triangle. Thanks for watching.